Developing news from KXAN Austin News.
People could see the smoke for 60 miles. This fire at a chemical plant in Bryan led to the evacuation of thousands of area residents. That chemical fire is now under control, and people are getting the word that they can return to their homes now. Officials evacuated much of northern Brazos County after the fire broke out in Bryan around noontime. An area with 80,000 residents was put under a mandatory evacuation order because of the fire at a plant that processes explosive ammonium nitrate. Right now, a scaled-back evacuation remains in effect for a small area surrounding the El Dorado Chemical Company plant that's just west of Bryan. Elizabeth Scarborough has more on tonight's top story.
I was right there.
89-year-old Kalitha Hall lives about 800 yards from this. A huge plume of smoke and chemicals streaming out of an El Dorado Chemical Company warehouse in Bryan.
I was left at the place by myself.
She had no way of getting out for 6 hours, stuck in her home. Were you scared?
Well, I didn't know. I wasn't scared because I didn't know what really was happening.
She was one of 2 people who had to be rescued.
I talked to her family members and told her that we had her already and we're getting her out.
At one point, more than 50,000 people had to be evacuated from the rural area surrounding the warehouse and the city of Bryan, a toxic cloud hovering over the area.
Our main concern is the safety of our citizens. Our second concern is to make sure that what we do is environmentally correct.
The fire started just before noon. Investigators say 2 men were working inside the warehouse, possibly with a cutting torch. They were able to get out okay, but firefighters quickly realized they could not use regular tactics. All they could do was wait until the fire put itself out. They set up a command post 2 miles away. From pictures they took using a raised camera, you can see the smoke looked orange. The fire chief says the building was filled with fertilizer and a volatile chemical called ammonium nitrate.
It'll give you chemical burns inside your nasal passages and such.
At least a dozen people were treated at local hospitals for respiratory issues, although none life-threatening. Around 7 p.m., the chief said most people could come home. After using a computer program, the hazmat team determined that most of the area was safe from chemicals. Hazmat cleanup crews will now go in to get rid of any chemicals left in the warehouse. But for people like Kalitha Hall, it'll be a long night away from home.
That was Elizabeth Scarborough reporting from Bryan, and online now at KXAN.com we have more information about the dangers and a look back at an ammonium nitrate explosion back in 1947 that killed more than 500 people in Texas City. In Austin.